Hey Siri,
Mm-hmm.
how do you find happiness?
Here's what I found from thisiskama.com. You can find happiness by simply reflecting on past happenings, some of them achievements, and others simply pleasant experiences.
And welcome to the next episode of Chocolate Cake on Tuesday. Thanks for coming back, guys. It's the third week in a row, counting the bonus episode. I am your host, Charlotte Russell, and I am so excited to be with you today. Perhaps you are curling up on a couch right now with a cup of tea, maybe with a friend or with your family, or if you're the kind of person who likes to be busy while listening, you might be walking it out, folding laundry, or falling asleep even. Guys, I'm the kind of person who likes to be busy when I'm listening to podcasts. But wherever you are right now, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the book called The Happiest Man on Earth, written by born storyteller, peace activist, and Holocaust survivor, Eddie Jaku. This is not just your regular book review or summary, my friend, because that you could get on ChatGPT. This is something so human, AI could not touch this. We are going to use this book almost as a conversation starter. Together, we'll look at what does it take to be happy, where I'll not only be asking you that question. By the way, there will be a Q&A if you're listening on Spotify. Please go ahead and answer that if you so wish to. But I'll also be sharing some thoughts from others I have already asked this question of, and of course, we'll throw in some stats in there. And if you haven't read the book yet, that's no problem at all. Like they say in Portugal, Lisbon, here where I'm based, tudo bem, everything's fine, everything's always fine here. We will go over a quick recap of the book itself, as well as a special reading of a section of the book presented by my own husband, Jeffrey Russell, which I am very excited about. Without further ado, let's jump in. The Happiest Man on Earth is a true story, a memoir, written by Eddie Jaku, or his full Jewish name being Abraham Salomon Jakubowicz. I think that's maybe why he changed it, because I am going to seriously mispronounce that. Some quick 5 facts about Eddie Jaku. Eddie Jaku was born in Germany when better known as the Weimar Republic in 1920 to a Jewish German family. In 1933, when Eddie was 13 years old, he was expelled from his high school because he was Jewish. After his capture on Kristallnacht in 1938, Jaku endured the next 7 years in captivity in accordance to Hitler's final solution to exterminate all Jews and other social misfits. During these 7 years, Jaku was taken to both Buchenwald and Auschwitz concentration camps. He spent 1 year in a Belgian university teaching engineering and impressively escaped 5 times during these years, but got arrested each time, never spending more than a couple months free at a time, before his final attempt was successfully executed. Guys, say successfully executed fast 5 times. I dare you. By hiding in a drainpipe during the famous Death March of 1945, whereafter he hid in a cave and contracted both cholera and typhoid before he was found by US forces a few months later. After the war, he relocated to Australia with his new wife, and later he published his book, The Happiest Man on Earth, in July 2020 at the ripe old age of 100 years old. My favorite little story from the book is when Jaku remembers fondly his 13th birthday. Germany was in an economic recession after World War I and the Great Depression in the US. Salaries had dropped by 39% from 1929 to 1932. Jaku's family was very poor. However, for his birthday, his father asked him, "Eddie, what do you want for your birthday this year?" He replied he wanted 6 eggs, a whole loaf of white bread, and a pineapple. He explained that 6 eggs at one time was very rare, and he had never seen a pineapple. Somehow his father found one though, and Eddie was so excited about these presents he ate everything in one sitting and was very happy. I think that is so sweet. The last time I had eggs, I had made them for dinner because I was too tired to make any real dinner and ate them probably a little grumpily because it was late and I wanted to go to bed. I must admit that it took a very simple thing to make Eddie Jaku smile that day. For some of us, it takes a lot more than a few eggs and a pineapple to make our birthday special. And for others, we claim that all we need to be happy is a home to go to and someone to love. Well, that is a lovely thought, but is it really true? One misconception we sometimes have is that to be happy, we need to be successful, wealthy, or powerful. And this assumption is proven wrong by the observance of many, many successful, wealthy, or powerful people who are self-reportedly unhappy. We chase these paradigms in pursuit of happiness without giving it a second thought. Why? Let's have a look at the definition of happiness. PositivePsychology.com defines happiness as the positive emotions we have in regards to the pleasurable activities we take part in through our daily lives. Pleasure, comfort, gratitude, hope, and inspiration are all positive emotions that increase our happiness. Why do we care so much about being happy? Experts tell us that staying happy boosts the immune system and helps to prevent sickness. I've seen this in the workplace, where stress leads to burnout, which leads to a huge drop in physical performance and often physical health as well. When we're happy, we are also more likely to be likable to others, and being liked or loved, if you listened to my episode last week, you'll know what I'm talking about, is one of our main desires and needs as a human being. Well, listeners, I have a question for you. What does it take for you to be happy? Why don't you take a moment now and consider this question? Is it perhaps pursuing your passions? Tending to relationships that mean the most to you? Being grateful for what you have? Prioritizing self-awareness and wellness? Eating your favorite pizza on a Friday after a long week? After you've had some time to think about this, I have sought some other opinions that I would love to share with you. ChatGPT-3, who gives us insights from an AI perspective on happiness. Its answer, as it will tell you on the little blurb before you chat, is based on extensive data and human interactions with the program. Its answer was, and I quote, "Finding happiness is a deeply personal and subjective journey, as what brings joy and fulfillment can vary from person to person. Remember, happiness is not a destination, but a journey. It's important to embrace the ups and downs, be patient with yourself, and focus on building a life that aligns with your values and bring you genuine joy and fulfillment." We've already heard Siri's input in the beginning of today's episode. Tim Keller. He unfortunately passed away very recently as he was sick. I didn't even realize until he passed away. But he is a huge hero of mine, and I read his book, The Meaning of Marriage, which was very good before I was married even. And this is a quote taken from there on his thoughts on happiness. This is in the context of marriage, but in my opinion, as I hope you'll hear, it can be applied to our whole life, even outside of marriage. The deep happiness that marriage can bring, then, lies on the far side of sacrificial service in the power of the Spirit. That is, you only discover your own happiness after each of you has put the happiness of your spouse ahead of your own in a sustained way in response to what Jesus has done for you. Some will ask, if I put the happiness of my own spouse ahead of my own needs, then what do I get out of it? The answer is happiness. That is what you get, but a happiness through serving others instead of using them, a happiness that won't be bad for you. It is the joy that comes from giving joy, from loving another person in a costly way. And the last source that I have sought when trying to discover for myself what is happiness, what are people saying about it, apart from the stats that we'll hear later, is the Bible. The Bible more often speaks about joy rather than happiness. Joy itself is scriptural and profound, whereas happiness is a balm. One is not better than the other, they're just different. According to compassion.com, happiness can be pursued, joy can be chosen. In a sense, happiness is a reaction, an outward expression, usually related to a circumstance that is pleasant enough to cause happiness. Joy is not an effect of circumstance. Joy is possible to find if sought amidst the saddest griefs, tragedies, and uncertainty. After reading the book, I think that Eddie Jaku was able to be the happiest man on earth because he chose joy through hard times. He chose to be grateful for what he had that was good: a friend, a family member, a rag for his pokey shoes, a pineapple, and not emotionally drown in the myriad of negative experiences he was going through. It is seen numerous times in the Bible where God actually provides the joy we seek during hard times. The Psalms, for example, repeatedly describe the author feeling anxious, hopeless, abandoned, or rejected, and how the Lord restores his health. For example, Psalm 30 reads, "You have turned my mourning into joyful dancing. You have taken away my clothes of mourning and clothed me with joy, that I might sing praises to you and not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give thanks forever." And now we have some, I believe, relevant statistics on happiness levels in Europe and the world. Guys, I didn't know this, but maybe you did. March 20th is the International Day of Happiness. This was designated by the United Nations, and this year, 2023, was the 10th anniversary. On this day, this year, the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network published a report drawing on global survey data from people in more than 150 countries, ranking countries on happiness. This was based on their average life evaluations over the 3 preceding years, which in this case is 2020 to 2022. Hello, COVID. In an interview with CNN, John Helliwell, one of the authors of the World Happiness Report, also noted that benevolence to others, especially the helping of strangers, which went up dramatically in 2021, stayed high in 2022. He says, "Even during these difficult years, positive emotions have remained twice as prevalent as negative ones, and feelings of positive social support twice as strong as those of loneliness." Benevolence is about 25% higher than it was pre-pandemic, which kind of does a full circle back to what Tim Keller was saying about how we find happiness, and that's by giving and not taking. Maybe he's got a point. Well, for the 6th year in a row, Finland is the world's happiest country. Number 2, Denmark. 3, Iceland. 4, Israel. And 5, Netherlands. The US is somewhere on number 15, and I'm actually not sure where Portugal is. Now, this is all very lovely to talk about. However, critics do argue that the index for this report/survey is problematic for several reasons. For one, no one can agree on what happiness means. Some say that in the case of Finland, at least, happiness means satisfaction with their lives, considering highly things like GDP per capita and freedom from oppression. Whereas Latin American countries such as Paraguay and Guatemala would have been considered the happiest if the index was based on the amount of positive emotion people experience. While some African countries, including Togo and Senegal, would have ranked higher if based on whether citizens experience their lives as meaningful. And so, I encourage you to think about these different ideas that people have on happiness and reflect on how they might influence your own understanding of happiness. And please feel free to share these thoughts and opinions with me and others if you so wish on Instagram. Tag me and this episode. Also, you can reply to the Q&A or the poll on Spotify. And there is a WhatsApp number, so you can always send me a WhatsApp or even better, a voice note. If it's a story that you'd love to share with everyone, just say that in your voice note and I will be sure to publish that in one of my episodes coming up soon. And now for a quick break where I will just let you know a little bit of exciting things that are happening at the end of our time together. Hey guys, this is Charlotte Russell and you're listening to Chocolate Cake on Tuesday. This is a quick break. I just wanted to say, if you're really enjoying these episodes but want to listen to other episodes in between your slice of cake every Tuesday, please stick around until the end of this episode because I will be sharing a recommendation of a podcast show and sometimes a book that I am loving right now. And also, I will be sharing one thing that I am grateful for. This is something I'm trying just to spread some happiness. So without further ado, I would love to look a little bit more about the book itself that we are talking about today, which is The Happiest Man on Earth by Eddie Jaku. Hey guys, welcome back from the break. So yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit about The Happiest Man on Earth. I will give you a brief overview of the book, but I would recommend you read this book. I will give you my thoughts on it at the end, but for now, let's just give you a rundown of what happened. So, as I said earlier, Eddie Jaku was born in Germany, but his life was changed drastically as soon as Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. Where it all turned around for him was upon returning to his hometown from college to visit his parents for their 22nd anniversary. Little did he know that that night was Kristallnacht. This is in German Crystal Night, and it basically refers to the sound that people heard that night of glass shattering. They raided the house that night and arrested him there. The first camp he went to was Camp Buchenwald, which was terrible, but Eddie had a lucky escape when a friend from college told the army he was a toolmaker and his father fetched him, supposedly to take him to a factory, but instead they escaped. They made it all the way to Belgium. However, there, because they were German, they were arrested and he spent 1 year in the university teaching in Belgium. In 1940, Germany invaded Belgium. They had to escape but ended up in Dunkirk as the Battle of Dunkirk was taking place and was not allowed on the ships that were rescuing the soldiers. And so he traveled on foot south to France, where he was arrested and sent to Auschwitz. Auschwitz took away Eddie's family and his will to live. He was separated from his mother, father, and sister, who were captured with him. His mother and father did not make it as they were too old, but his sister survived until the end of the war. By the end of the war, Eddie's mental and physical health had been completely destroyed. He managed to escape the death march by hiding in a drain and was found by the US Army a few months later, where he began his recovery process. He didn't go back to Germany, but instead made his life in Belgium, where he was reunited with his sister and his best friend, Kurt. Here he met and fell in love with his wife, Fleur, but she, of course, couldn't fully understand his experiences during the war. Eddie was now programmed to look for danger. He was full of pain, and he said he didn't want to dance. He did have children, and they actually moved to Australia and began a new life there, where he began to process what he had been through. Australia provided a haven for Eddie and his family as he tried to forget the trauma of his past. In 2019, he spoke in front of millions of people at a TED Talk and was a main contributor to the Sydney Jewish Museum. And so, lovely listeners, if this did whet your appetite to read the book, I would recommend it. It was very well written, a great format of 15 life lessons for being happy. It was my first Auschwitz-related book, so I do not know how it compares to others. But I will say that before reading this book, I was a little worried about the content being too disturbing to read. But I can say, as a sensitive reader myself, this book was good in that regard. I gave the story 4 stars out of 5 because as much as this man has overcome, I found the book itself to lack great substance. I would say that fits well in the short novella format that it is. It's not a very long read. It's about a 4-hour read if you're listening to it on Audible. So I would definitely recommend this book. And now, the moment you have all been waiting for. No, I'm joking. Now we are going to do a reading from the book. Jeffrey is going to read for us. Thank you, darling. He's going to be reading from chapter 6, and the heading is One Good Friend is My Whole World.
Chapter 6. One good friend is my whole world. Suddenly, I had lost everything. My family, my possessions, my remaining faith in humanity. I was allowed to keep only my belt, my one memento of a life I would never see again. As people came into Auschwitz, the Nazis would confiscate everything they owned and take it to a special area to be sorted by Jewish slave laborers. We prisoners called this area Canada, as Canada was seen as a peaceful place where all the good things in life, food, money, jewelry, were available in surplus. Everything I owned was stolen and sent to Canada. Worst of all, my dignity was stripped from me. When Hitler had written his hateful book, Mein Kampf, in which he blamed all the troubles of the world on Jews, he had fantasized about a world in which we would be humiliated, eating like pigs, dressed in rags, the most pitiful people in the world. Now that had come true. My number was 172338. This was now my only identity. They even took your name from you. No longer a man, just a gear, turning slowly in a great killing machine. When they tattooed the number on my arm, I was sentenced to a slow death, but first they wanted to kill my spirit. I lived in a barracks with 400 Jews from all over Europe, Hungarian, French, Russian. Prisoners were segregated by race and category. Jews in this barracks, political prisoners in that. To Hitler, we were all the same, but we came from many different countries, classes, professions, all mixed in together. Many of us couldn't speak the same language, and few of us had anything in common. It was a huge shock to me to be imprisoned with so many strangers from so many different cultures. The only thing we had in common was our Judaism, and even this meant different things to each of us. Some of us were very religious, others, like me, rarely thought about our Judaism before it had become dangerous to be a Jew. Growing up, I had always been a proud German. This is what made what happened to us so crazy to me. Why, I will always ask, why? Why? My first work detail was clearing the site of a bombed-out ammunition depot. Not far from Auschwitz was a village which had been used as a supply depot for ammunition and ordnance to be sent to the front. We were marched out to the site and picked up bits of exploded ammunition with our bare hands. It was hard, dangerous work. I was very unhappy. The other Jews in my detail did not trust me because I was German, and I soon learned to keep to myself. The exception was Kurt. My parents were dead, and I did not know if my sister had survived the selection. Kurt was my only link to my old life and a time when I was happy. I must tell you, there was nothing more important to me at that time than my friendship with Kurt. Without him, I would have succumbed to despair after my parents were murdered. We were in different barracks, but at the end of every day, we would meet and walk and talk. This simple thing was enough to keep me going, to know that there was someone left in the world who cared about me. And Kurt and I were never on the same work detail. The Germans were very precise keepers of records and had information on the locations and professions of Jewish people from all over Germany. This was the part of what made them such horrible and efficient killers. Luckily for Kurt, Auschwitz had no papers on him. He came from a city on the border of Germany and Poland, and the Nazis did not have the records from that town. When they asked him what his profession was, he said shoemaker. So he was put to work as a skilled craftsman, making shoes in a workshop right in the camp. He stayed indoors, didn't have to walk in rain and snow to work in a factory like the rest of us. We would come back, starving, blisters on our feet, and he would be safe and dry, with extra food in his belly. Every time there was leftover food for prisoners, it went first to the people in the camp: tailors, shoemakers, carpenters. The factories we worked for were supposed to feed us before we left, but there was never enough food, and when we returned to the camp, there was often nothing for us there either. This was very good for Kurt, and often he was able to save a little of his extra food and share it with me. We were able to look after each other. This is real friendship. There was a lot of opportunity to be found in the waste of the camp. For example, when the carpenters' hacksaws became blunt, they would throw them out. Instead of wasting that precious steel, I would collect them and grind away the teeth to create beautiful knives, and then carve polished timber handles for them. I would sell them for clothes or some food or soap, both to other prisoners, like those who worked in Canada and had valuables to spare, and to civilians. In addition to Nazis, there were many civilians in Auschwitz: the cooks, the drivers. German or Polish, they were just there to survive the war like anyone else. From them, I would take commissions for custom creations. I would use the machinery at the factory to make rings for their sweethearts, engrave them with initials. I would trade a good steel ring for a shirt or a bar of soap. One day, I found a big pot that had a hole in it and had been thrown out. I had an idea, so I patched it up and took it back to camp. I approached some of the prisoner doctors. There were many doctors in Auschwitz. Maybe 2 out of 10 of all middle-class German Jews imprisoned were some kind of doctor. Each morning, they were taken by bus to various hospitals and put to work. Sometimes they were sent to the front to work on German casualties as they came back from battle. When this happened, they were gone for days at a time. Each day, they were paid in potatoes. 4 raw potatoes for a day's work. But you cannot eat a raw potato. That is poison. So they would come to me. I charged 1 potato to boil 4. This gave me a little extra food to share with Kurt. Often in the evening, I would walk to find him with my pockets full of potatoes, and we would share 2 or 3 for our dinner. One night, As I was walking past the SAS, one of the guards with a reputation for bullying suddenly reached out to kick me in the backside. But I turned around and he kicked my pocket full of potatoes. I had to pretend I was hurt and limp away or he would give me another one. And I said to Kurt, "I'm sorry, but today the meal is mashed potato." I can tell you that I would not be here today without Kurt. Thanks to my friend, I survived. We looked after each other. When one of us was injured or too sick to work, the other would find food and help the other. We kept each other alive. The average survival time of a prisoner in Auschwitz was 7 months. Without Kurt, I wouldn't have made it half that far. When I had a sore throat, he cut his scarf in half and gave me one so I could recover. People saw us wearing the same scarf and assumed we were brothers. We were that close. Each morning we would wake up, and before work, we would walk around the blocks and talk to keep our spirits up. We would hide little presents for each other behind a brick I had carved out in the toilet wall. Soap, toothpaste, pieces of rags. These moments of friendship and gratitude were necessary in order to survive that inhumane place Hitler had created. Many people chose to take their own lives rather than go on. It was so common, there was even a phrase to describe it: go to the wire. Auschwitz II-Birkenau, a sub-camp of the much larger Auschwitz camp complex, was surrounded by an electrified barbed wire fence. To touch this fence was certain death, and so, to end their lives without giving the Nazis the satisfaction of killing them, people would run to the wire and grab it. I lost 2 good friends this way. They went, naked, holding hands, to the wire. I do not blame them. Certainly, there were many days I would have preferred to be dead. We were cold, we were sick. Many times I said to Kurt, "Let's go. What is the point of living, only to suffer tomorrow?" Kurt refused. He would not let me go to the wire. This is the most important thing I have ever learned. The greatest thing you will ever do is be loved by another person. I cannot emphasize this enough, especially to young people. Without friendship, a human being is lost. A friend is someone who reminds you to feel alive. Auschwitz was a living nightmare, a place of unimaginable horrors. But I survived because I owed it to my friend Kurt to survive, to live another day so that I might see him again. Having even just one good friend means that the world takes on new meaning. One good friend can be your entire world. This, more than the food we shared or the warm clothes or the medicine, was the most important thing. The best balm for the soul is friendship, and with that friendship, we could do the impossible.
Thank you, darling. That was lovely. I really enjoyed this chapter. And I wanted to just a quick note to say that I did say at the beginning of the episode that we would be talking about forgiveness. I have the notes here. I've just run out of time. So I hope that in an episode to come, we will be able to talk about this topic. It's actually a really big topic, and it's maybe a good thing that I'm not opening it now when we have such short time together left. However, I think we have a quick 3 minutes. I can do it under 3 minutes to share a show recommendation with you, as well as expressing some gratitude with you guys. So if you're cool to stick around for another 3 minutes, here we go. Okay, guys, so I am very excited to share with you today a podcast that I have been listening to and loving, like cannot live without loving, for the past 3 years, 2 years, 3 years maybe. And I probably started this podcast just so that I could share this with you. No, I'm joking. It was other reasons as well, but she is my hero. So the podcast is called The Next Right Thing with Emily P. Freeman. Guys, her voice to listen to is just the best. This podcast is for the second guessers, the chronically hesitant, or anyone who suffers from decision fatigue. She is a best-selling author and host of this podcast, and she helps to create a little space for our souls to breathe so we can discern our next right thing in love. I love this show. I do not suffer from decision fatigue particularly, but I think that I, like all of you guys, have a lot of decisions to make in the day. But she talks about everything, guys. She talks about friendship. She's doing a little series on the Psalms at the moment. She talks about becoming, like the human you are becoming. My favorite thing that she does is that she works with seasons, and every season, whether it's spring, summer, birthday season, whatever it is, she will help you to set some intentions for the season, reflect back on the last season you've been in. She even has a playlist on Spotify with songs for each season. So if you guys want to check that out, it's called The Next Right Thing by Emily P. Freeman. I'd recommend you give her a try, as I have really loved listening to her. So one thing I am grateful for personally, well, I can only pick one, but I think this time I'm going to pick. I am grateful for my work at the venue. It is a coffee shop run by our church, which maybe brings up a few associations as I say that. It's not like your coffee shop, it's not like your church. It's different. It's Lisbon. It's incredible. And yeah, really fun to just bond with the team. We're a new team, and it's a small team, but really precious. And yeah, we just really saw really God is busy doing something through the coffee shop, through the venue itself. It's a peaceful place. It's a beautiful space. It's done really excellently. But there's something about it that we all just can't get enough of. And I think that's just the Lord's goodness, man. And also Levi making really good coffee. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that. So guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Chocolate Cake on Tuesday. We spoke about the journey of discovering happiness by Eddie Jaku. He was the author of our book today, The Happiest Man on Earth. I hope you enjoyed the special treat of Jeffrey, my husband, for reading an excerpt of the book. If you do enjoy the readings, don't forget to text me or share with me that so I'll keep doing it. I really love it. I love reading. I love it when people read to me. So this was a real treat for me too. Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm going to end the episode today with a scripture that I read in my devotional this morning from Romans 15. And I'll leave this with you. I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in Him. Then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit.